Matchmaker Communications 101 presents The Young Reporters. The Young Reporters chase down ordinary people doing amazing things in the greater Phoenix community and beyond. These inner-city young journalists take their classroom on the air, a class about ethics, commitment, loyalty, and teamwork. When you're on The Young Reporters, be prepared to talk about things you never expected. And now, let's go into the classroom.
We are back in the classroom, the adult classroom, the Young Reporters classroom, and we are the older version of the Young Reporters. I'm Bob Fishman, which I rarely say as we come on the air. I usually don't even say my name because this isn't about me. This is about the fabulous group of people that we get in the studio on a regular basis. I want to thank a few people before we get this thing started. Alan Ripa helped to make this show in a big way by lining up amazing guests. He's been trying to get certain guests in the studio for 2 years, and he finally pulled it off today. And that's a big deal, Alan, so I want to thank you in specific. Secondly, Holly Dowling, my right-hand compatriot here, another major catch for today's show. Holly is a very hard person to get in the studio. Holly is an amazing person that I won't go into heavy detail right now, but it's very hard to get Holly booked. Thank you to J Lapastora over here on the sidelines back under the studio sign here. But Amber helped to make this happen. Holly, we're so glad to have you here, and especially because Mark Candelaria and his daughter Tiffany are here. We're so glad to have you and your husband Steve with us. Steve gets to be one of our guests today because we've never had Steve in the studio before.
Steve is Holly's husband, not
did
Tiffany's.
I say that wrong, Alan?
Yes, you did, sir.
I every once in a while I do that, don't I?
That could be misinterpreted.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's a much more exciting show than I expected.
We're going to cover incest at some point here, maybe, too. So if I got it wrong, it's Mark Candelaria, I believe, is Tiffany's father.
That's
I got that right there. There we go. I'm sorry about that. But it's rare catches to get this group in the studio today. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this show today, even though we are in difficult times in the country. And that's another reason why we're doing this show today, is because we're in difficult times in the country, and we want to do something positive for this larger Phoenix community, the Arizona community, and the country at large, because we need some positivity right now. I want to speak briefly about some books I've been reading lately, which are really, my wife gives me some books, other people give me some books periodically, but and Holly just brought up something a minute ago about one of the things that she's into, and I just finished a book that, Alan, that you gave me, because one of the guests that you're trying to get in the studio that's out of New York is Charlene Doak-Giebauer. I don't know how to pronounce that.
But Charlene's one of my very best friends.
Yes,
are you serious?
She was, Holly, you referred me to her, and we've been in touch. Yes.
This is an amazing book because I kind of rant occasionally about technology and the internet. And again, this is our opening segment, and I'll do this minimally because I want to get to our guests. But this book is a real good summation of part of what I've been saying for years, is that the internet has caused so much trouble in our country, and some of the trouble we're going through right now is internet caused. Bad information on the internet, false rumors, fake rumors on the internet, spreading rumors about even the coronavirus right now that are not true. But this book is an amazing book.
I think that it's almost being transmitted through the internet now.
Well, this book is amazing because it talks about, and it's written by a Canadian author, and she talks about just the pervasive nature of how kids are being groomed and chased thanks to technology. And I guess you know about this, right, Holly?
Well,
what do you know about this?
Let me tell you that I've known Charlene for quite some time.
Oh, by the way, the book is called The Internet, and it's subtitled Our Children in Charge. So tell us about Charlene.
And the fact that even seeing your face right now and how you are so adamant about this is her second book. And the reality is this was her passion, and most people don't know the background here. She was actually, her niece at the age of 4 was a victim of child trafficking, child pornography, and it ended up impacting her entire family's life for their entire life. And this is the scary part. She started this movement because of that, and this has now helped us understand the magnitude that the internet has no boundaries. There are no walls. That children are being trafficked right in their own bedrooms. Her daughter, or her niece, by the way, and this is the part that's startling, the 4-year-old was going across the street to the neighbor's home.
It was awful.
Where she was playing every day.
Yeah.
So now, and I'm part of the Global Summit that is all part of anti-child trafficking. So we had an event in Canada in November, and people came from all over the world, dignitaries from Africa, from Ireland, from all over. And I will tell you that it's right now, there's no boundaries, there's no walls. We are, whether you have children or not, you are responsible for what's happening to these children. And most parents don't even realize if their children has a phone, you pay for that phone, everything that goes on that phone, you are held responsible for by the law.
That was one of the amazing things in the book that says if, as a guardian or parent that you have to monitor, otherwise you are legally responsible in many cases. So.
Yes, and this can go very heavy. But on a light note, I'm just looking at you, Alan, going, why am I the only one in here with a headset on?
Well, my volume is pretty loud. That's what mine is up. Let me ask you, as we're getting this show started, tell us a little bit about yourself. Okay, I want the guests to know who you are, and I'll fill in a few blanks. Tell us about the highlights of you as you see it. I know what you do currently. How did you? What's your background, and how did you get to where you are right now as a very famous?
Bob, that's a big question.
I know that, but you're a very, very powerful international speaker. That much I can say right now. But you give us your description of yourself, okay?
Well, I love that you just said that, and I would say if you've got 2 hours and a bottle of wine, we can talk about that story. That is definitely most people set out to accomplish, and I always believe in having your dreams and goals. This business found me. And I'm going to pause.
How do you mean that? How do you mean that? The business
because I do believe if you are on this earth and you realize that you've been put here for a mission, and I do believe that God has given me an opportunity to be a messenger because I've been through a lot of stuff, and sometimes through the darkest times have come the greatest gifts, which is helping others. And I've never sat in a studio. Today is a first. So I'm all over the world, and never do I get to sit and have the most amazing human being in my life who has been there to support me and loved me when I didn't think I'd ever be loved. So he's in the studio with us.
So with Steve, this is the first to be in the studio?
I was talking about Alan. I'm sorry.
Oh. So Holly, what is it? You are a speaker, right? And how did you become a speaker?
Again, it's one of those crazy stories, Bob, that just came. It happened just, you know how things happen in our life? And at the time, this was many years ago, and a friend of mine was a high school teacher, like yourself, with children. And she said, we were getting to know each other, and she said, your story is pretty amazing. Would you be willing to come share it with my high school students? And this was in kind of a rough area in Denver, Colorado at the time. And I thought, me? Share my story? Why would they want to hear this? It's kind of graphic. And she looked at me and she said, I just feel like these kids need to hear it. So I marched in there one day, and with her high school students, they put 2 classrooms of kids together, and I began to tell a story that's a part of my past that I hadn't really shared. And unbeknownst to me, children, boys and girls, high school students, stood in line, boys crying, girls crying. And I still carry in my briefcase a letter that came to me from a young lady after that day that basically said in the 3 pages in that letter, that's tethered and worn and lives in a Ziploc baggie that is in my briefcase. And she said in that letter that was given to the teacher to hand to me that day, and I'm going to get emotional.
Go right ahead.
Because this is the reason I'm on the mission I've been on for how many years now. That day, she said, sitting in that room, she said she had it all planned to take her life that day. She was 15 years old. And she had been being sexually abused by her father and her uncles and being sold for cocaine. And she had the day planned that after school, she was going to end her life. And because of that moment, whatever came out of my mouth in that moment, she got hope and knew that there was a reason she was put on this earth, and had chosen not to take her life and to actually seek help and to let people know. And I carry around that letter because some days I'm exhausted like everybody else and wondering if I'm doing what God wants me to do. And I look at that and I go, we're all put here for a reason. Sometimes we just need a wake-up call.
And I really appreciate you sharing that story, because I've heard it, a little bits of it here and there. Hearing it from you right now is, again, it brings back, it's very powerful, and I appreciate that. And that led to you giving another speech in the school, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe another speech in the school, maybe the 3rd time. Somebody from IBM was in the audience.
Yep.
And they decided they wanted you to speak to IBM, right? And
you got it. You're a good listener, Bob.
And then what happened? Then that led to other things. One thing led to another, and your list of your list of clients is amazing. It's like half of Silicon Valley. It's an amazing. Can you give us just a brief list of your major clients? We got about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I would love to. And you actually nailed it. It turned into the superintendent. The principal said, can you come speak to all the schools in the assembly? Can we bring the parents in to hear this? And people stood in line with their cards. And yes, IBM. And that's how it all started. And I feel very blessed. I sometimes don't realize the kind of clients. I mean, Deloitte, Facebook, Gap Brands, Microsoft, Accenture. I mean, I could sit here and rattle them off, but they're all about the people, right? We're there to serve the people.
And this is why one of the reasons why this show is happening today, because it was too important not to get you together with our guests that are in the studio today, including your husband, and let him hear your story in the studio, because maybe you don't brag about yourself in front of your husband enough. Who knows?
Oh, he gets to hear it all the time. No.
We've got, real briefly, we got Alan Ripa in the studio with us as another co-host. We've got Tiffany Candelaria, Mark Candelaria, and Steve Dowling. Alan, real briefly, I don't want to shortchange you, because Alan is a major star of music in the smooth jazz era of music. Alan was the king. His music was heard all over the world, played on Air Force One, played on 27 or 28 airlines all around the world. That's just one of Alan's talent. He's won Emmys or Grammys or something or other for his digital whatever graphics. Alan is a major talent. He's a luxury real estate guy. And I'm just so happy that Alan has become part of our team. We have a growing team in this group here.
Thank you, Bob. How much does that cost me for all that?
It's going to cost a lot,
stuff?
believe me. And it's going to cost us having to go to commercial break here in a second. But we are the older version of Young Reporters. And then we will get to our guests in segment 2 and the rest of this show. And we'll probably do one more show with this group. So stay with us for our next segment of the older version of Young Reporters with all of our great people in the studio. We'll be right back after this short break.
Welcome back to the Young Reporters with the old folks. That's just kind of how I like to call this show. And I love being here. This is Holly Dowling, and I'm co-hosting with Bob Fishman today and the amazing Alan. Alan, it's so fun to have you back.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be back.
Well, good, because I act like I own the show, and I'm having you back on.
Can I show you
Yes,
something?
I thank you for asking me to come on today.
Absolutely.
One of Alan's talents. This is for everybody in the studio, and for Alan's CR radio, whatever. What do you call it? CR radio.
CRradioshow.com.
And so, Holly, this was what Alan did back before there was digital capabilities.
Yeah, that was all real.
Alan produced. This is one of his covers for one of his discs he did. And he actually.
And I remember when I saw that cover for the first time.
Yeah, he actually scooped out a piano or something and put soap suds in there, right, Alan? Is that what you did?
It was a junk piano, and I refinished it, and then made Mr. Bubbles suds.
Mr. Bubbles suds.
And scooped the suds off the top, and then I had foam down where the girl. There was a square cut out, and she came up through the middle, and then we placed the suds around her. And so that had to be a real shot, because that was in 1989, and we didn't have the computers back then.
And before you get to our other guests, Holly, I want to just thank somebody else I forgot to mention in the first segment. Somebody who's been with this show ever since we started, Kathy Droz, who you know.
Yes.
And this is Kathy's book. She's an expert. She's also, like you, Holly, somebody who puts powerful women together to do great things. And Kathy wrote the book, Do These High Heels Make Me Look Stupid? She actually changed the title to make it more corporate friendly, but I like the old version because it's more of Kathy's personality. And Kathy's been featured in magazines like whatever, North Valley and things like that. So Kathy is critical to the 9 years we've been on the air, and I don't want to forget Kathy and all that. So why don't you get us to our guest?
I love that. And Kathy is a dynamo. And you know what's great about Kathy? And I've had the opportunity to work with her and speak at an event for her, but I love those high heels. She wears the most amazing high heels everywhere she goes. It doesn't matter where she is. You will always see her in these amazing high heels. So really quick, I just have to go back to that picture, Alan. Do you remember the first time I saw that?
I don't.
How could you not remember? We were sitting in the studio, and I said, I want to be the girl in the suds.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yes. And you said, well, we shot that.
Huh? You want to be that
I
girl?
did. I go, I want to be the girl in the suds.
I still have that piano, so we can make arrangements. So
Let's talk to Stevie about
set that all up.
Yeah, we'll get
Yes, probably need permission for that, huh?
Yeah, we're like to Stevie. But we have some amazing guests in the studio today. So I don't even know. I mean, Alan, where would you like to start? What would you think?
Let me pick up on that real quick. Let's get Mark, the same way we do with Holly. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as you see yourself, and we'll get a little history from you, because other than just doing a quick look, because I don't do pre-research, but let's just get who you think you are and tell us a little bit about you. I know a couple things to ask about because I did take a brief look, but tell us who you are as you see it.
Well, I'm an architect. That's probably, and a father and a husband. I'm fortunate to design just a lot of beautiful houses for people all over the country, and I've been doing it for almost 40 years. And
you go out of the country too, don't you? Or am I mistaken?
I've done a couple houses in Mexico and Canada, and we did a makeover for a hotel in Italy, so that was kind of fun.
Wow.
But in addition to architecture, I love to play the piano. I don't play as good as Alan does, but it's a good hobby. I love to paint, love to cook all the time, and I just love to stay busy. So
one of the things I noticed in the brief look I took at your website, you seem to be very much a team builder. I was really impressed. You seem to have a very young and diverse group of people who are key to your company. And I don't know what the number of people is, but I loved one of the titles. One of the people that's in your leadership had a sort of a distinct director of
lasting impressions.
I love that title. Tell us about that. How did you come up with that, and what does that mean?
I don't remember where we came up with it. I probably read it in a book somewhere. But Janice, who runs our front desk, amongst many other duties she does, she's basically the first person that people see when they walk through the door. And so what I tell everyone in our staff meetings all the time is how important everybody's job is. Everybody's position and job makes us great as a company. So no one's better or worse, or we all have to be great together. And so what Janice does so well is when people walk in, she just automatically welcomes them. She puts these beautiful trays together on our conference table with food, and you just walk in and you just want to give her a hug. Now, I know we can't do that now, so we give Janice fist bumps, but her elbows are probably quite sore from all of them because she gets a lot of them.
One of the things, and I mentioned it off the air before we started the show, but this show grew out of a show with kids. That's why we call this the Young Reporters.
Yep.
And one of the things I tell the kids all the time, my background is business. I was a manufacturer's rep for many years, so I'm not just an educator. I'm a minor educator, but love business and business background. I tell the kids, when you walk in for your job interview, for your college interview, for whatever, that first person at the front desk, the receptionist, is the most important person in that business. Always respect them, and don't ever ignore them because they're the key to everything in the business.
Right.
And so you've honored that person. Yeah. That's one of her jobs, is to be the first greeter in effect.
I mean, I love the line, you only have one opportunity to make a first impression. And I think that's whether you're the director of first impressions or you're the person walking in the door. It's the same thing. I think we all have that opportunity. We all assess each other initially, for whatever reason, based on how we look and how we act, and that's the first impression you create. So.
One other quick question before we just open this up bigger and get other guests involved. You have a tendency to really reward people who are significant in your company.
Yeah.
I noticed somebody who's maybe 5 years at the company, somebody who's 14 years, and you made them like part of ownership. Is that?
Yeah.
And so tell me about that philosophy.
I think a lot of sole proprietors get lost in the sole proprietorship of their company, and I was fortunate to be a part of a company that created kind of a legacy, and I became a partner as a young employee and moved through the ranks. And so as I took over my company and started my company, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to give opportunities to my employees to become owners and part of the legacy of my brand and my company.
And that, I'm sure, builds ferocious loyalty.
It's worked quite well. Let's put it that way. I've got people that have been with me 20 years. Probably half of my office has been with me over 10 years. And obviously they rode through the last crisis, and now we're going through this crisis. And it's really interesting to see how they all jump into action with what we're going through now. I mean,
what is happening now with your company then in that respect?
So what we did is we actually started working from home a week ago already. And, we met actually a month ago about the coronavirus as a team and said, okay, let's start developing a plan now while we're not under stress of what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. And let's just play through some scenarios. And it really worked out great that we did all that, because then when we met a week or so ago, we just put it into action. And now we're just meeting every evening. We have a quick teleconference. We're all working from home. And so we just jump on a teleconference, touch base. We look at the news all day and say, okay, I think this is coming. How will that affect us? How will it affect our employees? How will it affect our clients? And just try to anticipate, are we batting 1,000? Of course not. No one bats 1,000. But we're batting pretty darn well so far. And I know we got it's the first inning probably, but we're definitely on base right now, and we're just going to keep going.
You seem to have a big calm about you. What are you doing successfully that you could sort of tell our audience about? Tell us about where is that calm coming from in the middle of this storm?
I guess for me, it's I've had my share of storms in life, and I've kind of learned to just mentally weather it. I mean, you just have to keep going and get through it, and get to the other side. And there will be another side to this and to everything. I mean, the other side, even if an asteroid hits the Earth and we all die, I believe there's another side that we're all going to go to. And so, the other side is there no matter what the situation. We got to get there.
By the way, that's a couple things you brought up there. One thing is I feel like I've paralleled to some extent going through 2008, 2009 financially with the markets and all that. It's much easier to handle this market bump because we went through it 12 years ago, and so you know the pattern a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the other books I'm reading right now is interesting. What you just referred to is an interesting book called Red State Christians, and it has to do with having us to better understand different viewpoints that we might not always be exposed to. It's very interesting. Let me get to your daughter Tiffany. Tiffany, can you tell us? We've got a couple minutes left in this segment. Tell us a little bit about who you are, if you're part of the company or not. What? Tell us a little bit about yourself as you see yourself. Okay.
Hi, yeah. So I joined my dad in his company just this December. I recently moved to town.
Perfect timing, right? Perfect timing.
It was good timing because she was working for Marriott.
Oh, was good timing. Yeah.
So,
Oh my goodness, you've been through the storm.
I've been with Starwood, who merged with Marriott since I graduated college.
And how long ago was that?
That was almost 10 years ago.
You look like a
younger than
baby.
that. Yeah, you look younger than that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been with them a long time. My 401k and stocks are still through them. But so I got my degree in journalism. So I've also been a freelance writer my adult life. And now I'm doing media for Candelaria Design and helping with his podcast and his website, and they just have so much going on, and we're opening a kitchen, and we're going to do classes and all kinds of fun things. So
kitchen and
sounds fun.
Classroom in the
office.
That's fabulous, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, maybe you could have a
almost
piano
done.
and have Alan in there.
Yeah,
Or Mark plays
though
yeah,
too.
yeah.
So.
We could have a
We'll bring the
band.
portable keyboards in. We'll get you in, Alan.
Yeah, how about that?
So,
Sure.
Tiffany, I worked with my father the last 9 years before he died, and it was great. It was a great experience for me of getting to know my father in a different way. If this is early in your thing with the business, has anything changed in terms of working with your dad yet, or has it always been close and whatever?
I mean, we have always been close, although I haven't lived in Phoenix for like the past 15 years. So this will definitely be a whole new level of closeness.
A whole new level of closeness. We have to go to a commercial break. On that note, we'll get more to it, and we get to Steve Dowling, because we haven't gotten a word from Steve yet, which we will. But we are the older version of the Young Reporters. I am Bob Fishman, along with my very, very special co-host, who's going to dominate more of the rest of the show, because I just want to get a foundation going here, you know?
I just love the way you roll. It
Thank
works.
you so much, Holly.
It
Well, I only
works.
roll because I have great people in the studio with us. We got Alan Ripa with us. We've got our guest Steve Dowling, Mark Candelaria, Tiffany Candelaria, I'm sorry, I mispronounced that. And we'll get right back to everybody right after this short break. Stay with us.
Welcome back to KFNX 1100.
Except that's fine. We're the MP3 version of this. We're in our transition, Alan. We are now in our transition to podcasting, probably. So it's great because you're talking about our past history.
Well,
which
so
is
much
fabulous.
for my opening the show up.
I know.
Thanks,
We are-
Bob.
We are using the studio to make this fabulous event happen.
Boy, I tell you, tough room.
But it's good, though. It's good that you brought it up because we've had almost a 9-year history. So And like Holly said, we flow with whatever, right, Holly? We
baby,
just
we
flow
go
with
with the
whatever.
You know, I'll tell you, I wasn't sure if I was going to start the
I
show or
love the
not.
look you gave me. Go ahead. You're back
Well-
to your intro. Go ahead.
Well, I used to think I was indecisive, but now I'm not sure.
LJ is joining the show. LJ is joining the show with applause. Thank you, LJ. I'm the only one who has headphones near to hear the applause we just
I
got.
missed
Okay, yeah,
that.
you missed the applause.
No, but okay, settle down. I just want to, seriously, of this show, that for a long time I've been wanting to take it to like a TV version. And so this is kind of the next step of, we're going to do this, and then the next show that I really want to do is going to be the TV
And the TV
version.
thing, we've had
That's why I
conversation
have
with-
crradioshow.com. That was all as a precursor to this show evolving into a TV type
And to
show.
establish for the Tiffany's and the Marks and the Steves, who are guests for the first time in the studio today. We've been involved with Huntington University on the West Valley for a while. That's been very interested in what we're doing with kids in particular, and they are teaching the future generations. They are like a media college, basically based out of Indiana, but they've got a branch here in Northwest Valley, and so Huntington University is part of this. And Alan, with you're going with CR Radio, so now get us into our segment. And I know that Holly had a comment she wanted to get back to Mark, so you go right ahead. You're part of the show.
Well, I'm all beat up and everything now, and I lost where I was at the intro. So, Holly, do you know where we're at in this show?
Alan, this is why I adore you. This is why it's so fun. You just never know what's about to happen, right? There's so many things happening, and I just have to pause and say I'm having a moment because I've never thought about this before, but I want you on my show. Celebration of You, a podcast, and I want everybody to know all about your gifts, your talents, and all that you've done over the years with the music.
Ooh.
So don't worry
I'll
that
have
you
to
botched
study.
the intro because you're going to have a whole opportunity. I'm going to celebrate you. All righty, on that note.
That's the intro. I love that phrase. That's
We're
beautiful.
going to get him on the show. So how's that?
Wow.
Do you feel better?
That's I'm speechless.
Really?
Well, no.
You know,
but-
I was going to say you really aren't ever speechless.
No, I'm not. I have a few things to say about it, but in the
We're going to
meantime,
cut you off in the meantime.
you are going to get us back over to Mark so he can
Yes.
tell us more about himself.
Well, Mark said something, and I just don't want to miss this because of the time that our world is in right now. And what I absolutely love, Mark, is that as you were sharing about with your team and go back a month ago, right?
Yep.
And just bringing everybody together and having a conversation around what's going on in the climate, what's the virus, and getting everybody involved
Right.
to be a part of this as a team. And the reason that's so important is I work with leaders all over the world. And right now, I'm seeing and feeling and being brought into how can we keep our teams engaged? How can we keep people from feeling so afraid?
Right.
Because most people are living in a state of fear right now. And they're living like in remote places and still being expected to work and having to manage how to have their children at home if they have children. And there's just so much happening. And I call it the miracles in the mess. But you, my friend, as a leader, hold on, you can go there in a second, Alan. You, my friend, as a leader and taking a team and doing what you did instinctively and then bringing them back together, this is the part that's so fabulous, is that you allowed people permission to bring their hearts to what would this look like and what are we going to do, right? Not
Right.
knowing what it's going to be. And they all came, so it sounds like, so actively involved to be like, okay, here's my ideas, here's my
Sure.
ideas. And when people are given an opportunity, unlike Alan who didn't get an opportunity, but when people are given an opportunity to actually raise their hand and bring their ideas, they're far more engaged.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you
Oh, thank
I
you.
would stand up, but then I won't be able to be in the mic. But you're a true extraordinary leader.
Well, thank you. I mean, a lot of it I learned from what I do as an architect. It's basically, what do? We create a plan, and then we follow the plan. And it's not just Mark creates a plan. We have engineers, we have other designers. It's a team effort. But you start with visualization, and so what we try to do is just sit down and make everyone kind of think about what could happen and how it could happen. So you kind of start playing it in your mind a little bit, even if it's just subconsciously. So when it does start to happen, that subconscious kind of kicks in. We already talked about that. This is what I got to do. And it's not like some big shock to the system. It's still a shock, but not as great. So I find if we do that as a team and visualize our next steps together collectively, and like you said, pull everybody in so everyone's kind of a part of it, I just think it eases the uncertainty as you go through some of these things.
Tiffany, did your father parent in that same style, or is that unique?
She went through a lot of uncertainty in my life, too.
Yes, tell us your view of if your dad brought that same skill set to parenting you.
He created the uncertainty.
That's why I'm so damn good at dealing with it now. I figure if I create and originate, then everyone else has got to play by my rules.
Well done, Tiffany.
So how did he create the uncertainty? Just he's always busy because he's architecturing around the world, or what? How did he create?
I mean, yeah, he's definitely always been a workaholic, and my parents got divorced when I was 3, so I mean, life was very full of change and just a lot of unknowns and going back and forth. I mean, I lived with both my parents. Like, I saw them both every week, so that was good. But it was, be prepared. Like, bring all the things you're going to need for the next week. And, like, Mom's not going to drive me across town if I forgot something.
So you got a young thing about being prepared,
I'm
huh?
such a planner.
Such a planner.
Yes, big
That's why
time.
she's working for me now.
Exactly. Got all my ducks in a row.
By the way, they both your parents did a great job, it seems like.
Yes, props to both of them.
Okay, great. I want to get Steve Dowling involved here. Steve, being married to a force like Holly, first of all, that's one of the questions I'm going to have you, but tell us about who you are in your life, what your career, what your path has been, and then I'll give you some.
Well, you're right. My beautiful wife is a force. And so basically, I'm a native Arizonan, which is very few and far between, as people well know. I have a beautiful wife, children, and we just moved to Arizona about 6 years ago.
From where?
Kansas City.
Okay.
And
What prompted the
Chiefs.
move?
Pardon?
What prompted the move?
Weather.
Good for you. Smart
Yeah.
decision.
Can't shovel the sunshine, right?
Yeah.
We were done with the big house, the snow, the ice, the
What,
cold.
and were you both careers back then, or what was
Yes,
going
we've
on?
been- yeah, we've entrepreneurs all our lives. I've been in my industry for 25 years.
What is that?
Basically taking photos for Holly, carrying her bags.
That's a growing industry, I hear.
Yeah, and a good day, I get to
do.
do help with the book signing. So, I'm going to pass it off to Tiffany now. No, really, we've raised our children. They saw 2 entrepreneurs in the house. And
What primarily was your entrepreneur?
Tell them what you really do.
So out of college, it's interesting how I got started. I was a business major, and I was dabbling playing baseball for a little bit. And
At what level?
just independent league, minor, low.
That's
Just-
pretty good level.
just-
Yes.
yeah.
Were you always looking at the major league career, or what?
Yeah, I would have liked to have done it, but you kind of see the writing.
You saw the writing. How close did you figure you got?
Good ways away. Yeah. I mean, you can live in the minors if you'd like, until they tell you to go home. They'll use you.
And that's the bus tour, isn't it? Isn't that like the bus tour all over wherever
bus
you're going
tour,
to?
the walking tour, the fast food tour. But from there, a kid I played baseball with, we decided to open up a couple cellular phone stores in Omaha, Nebraska. And so we got into that in kind of the boom of it in 1992, 93. And from there, this gentleman walks in that owns a engineering firm, and he wanted to build a people tracker. And so he comes in and he goes, "Do you know how you could help me do this from a data perspective?" I'm sure. And he goes, "All right, I'm going to set up a meeting. We're going to do this at our office next Wednesday or whatever." And so he left, and I'm like, "How in the heck am I going to do this?" I had no idea what to do. So I immersed myself.
You said yes, of course you can do it.
Yeah, well,
right?
with data back then, it was basically what's called CDPD. And what that is, it's code divisional multiple access. And so it's
Code
almost
divisional, multi-
Did you catch that, Alan?
multiple access. And basically what that is, think of your old computers on DOS, how antiquated that was or is.
You're speaking to a tech ignoramus, basically. But that's
Okay.
okay. Keep going. Yeah.
But
we
anyways,
got about
so
a minute and a
it's-
half in this segment.
So it's basically just, it was a very slow moving data. And so I got with Verizon at the time. They helped a lot with getting us going. And so we collaborated and created the first people tracker that they use
What
for
is a people track? What do you want?
so
What was he
this
looking for when you say
so
people tracker?
so-called ankle bracelet.
Oh, now I understand.
Martha
Oh, so like
Stewart?
for a
Yeah.
for a
And so
criminal type of
yeah,
purpose.
so they
Okay.
were going after just tracking people in general, and then the criminal justice exploded at that point. And then I decided, well, I have all this overhead. I have these 2 stores. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I got into a consulting situation with this company on their product, and then I started consulting other companies, the engineering firms that
So
wanted
this,
to do
the
stuff
classic
like this.
one thing leads to another, leads to another, and
Yes.
that's how you built your. But we have to go to a commercial break. Unfortunately, what do you? How do you
Well,
got
I
more
just have
comment?
to say, doesn't it all make sense now? I travel the world, and he has a tracking device on me.
It really is. Right. Yeah, the ankle bracelet.
People
We-
tracker. Yeah.
we are the older version, the Young Reporters. It's Bob Fishman along with Holly Dowling. We've got Alan and Ripa co-hosting with us. We got our great special guests, Mark Candelaria, Tiffany Candelaria, and Steve Dowling. And we got LJ back in the booth, helping us in a big way as always with her humor and everything else. We'll be right back after the short commercial break. Stay with us.
And hello, welcome back to the Young Reporters with the old farts. Why am I looking right at Alan as I said that? I don't know. Poor Alan. I feel like you're just getting. Today's your day, isn't it? Yeah, feel free.
Well, it has been a little bit rough.
It's only been about 4 years.
You know,
we've
it's
been on
been
the
a
show,
tough
yeah.
room, I tell you, a tough room.
Yeah. Tough friend, but you're so loved. I think that this is that philosophy when you're really loved, you're teased.
We know you can
He
take
paused.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, yes,
Right.
thank
No,
you.
you
It
can
builds
take-
character.
Right.
Like I'm short of character right now.
Yeah,
So,
no.
but I was just want to say this coronavirus that's
Yeah.
we're dealing with right now. Did you know that it mutated in with another disease?
Oh,
So
here
now
we go.
there
Get ready.
are actually
Get ready.
2 diseases right now.
I can only
So it's a
imagine.
2-for-1 deed.
Yeah, you get 2 diseases now.
Lyme
So it's-
disease and corona. So it's
Exactly.
corona and Lyme.
It's the corona disease and Lyme disease.
This is
so
what Alan
Wait,
brings
are you
to our
being
show on a
serious or
regular
funny? I
basis.
can't tell. Pinky swear right now.
I'm being funny.
Oh,
No.
See, I picked up on it.
You did.
I stole your line.
I know.
But luckily, I've been through them enough to know it's coming. I know when it's coming, and I.
Holly,
You do.
Yeah,
It's just like when I was younger, they used to call me Federal Express.
and
That was because every time I went over to a girl's house, I absolutely positively had to be there overnight.
Oh, there you go.
my.
That's a good one.
Alan, actually.
Okay, we're going back to your
Yeah,
husband,
yeah.
right?
Well, it's a funny transition, right? That's a great transition back into my husband. You know, like every night I had to be there all night. That's just like, okay, he's going to love that line. I have
use that one.
yeah, I have to bring this up now though because we're talking about coronavirus. Let's be real
Yeah.
and honest, right? And we're talking about what Mark's done, and I'm just in awe of you as a leader at your firm and
Thank
what
you.
you've done because I think that everybody could be mimicking that, whether you're virtually around the world or in present. Everybody's FaceTime, but you're still
Yep.
working from home.
Yep.
One of the things that I have to say, I'm big on the miracles in the mess. And I'm just going to say this loud and proud right now. So to everybody in the room, one of the biggest things that's been a blessing, as much as I know this is not fun with what's happened to sports. And I'm looking at our dear friend in the studios and I love sports too. But I have to say the miracle in all this, because we were going to be at March Madness.
Yep.
We go to Sweet 16, right, every year. It's our big thing. And I was the only person jumping up and down. For a moment, I was like, oh my gosh, for once, my dreams and wishes have come true. My husband has nothing to look at but me.
So, Steve, is
We've
that
actually-
true?
We've actually had conversations. We've had dinner together. We've
You know,
actually gone out.
Well, on that then, here she is, this famous international speaker. It's all about conversation. So, and you're more the quiet guy. Is that true or what?
No, actually, when she gets home, she's an introvert.
Oh, so
So
she's
it's not
she's on when she's out.
I'm the
Yes.
talker, and she tells me to be quiet.
Oh,
In a nice
really? Is
way.
that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I can relate to that from the standpoint that when you're communicating all day,
Yeah.
you just need to shut down for a while. Mike, you
sense.
experience that too?
Oh, yeah.
The idea that when you're in front of or on whatever.
Decompress.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting. There's a book called Quiet. I don't know if anybody has ever read it, but it really helped me understand. People think I'm an extrovert because they see me out there with people and fully engaged and fully invested. I've always been an introvert since I was a little girl. Like, I love to be alone and have time to think and do what I do or build or create. So when I read that book, it gave me permission, like a lot of people out there, to go, you don't have to be just one or the other.
Right.
You find that how you create your energy and your balance. So yes, when I'm giving it out, but when I get home or I'm back in a hotel room, my decompress is to be alone and to fill up. An extrovert would love to be out networking and going to parties and having fun. So Steve and I have actually worked through this together because I am on the road a lot. And, you know, bless his heart, he's running a business from home. So he's all excited. I'm off a plane and it's like, hey, let's go to this bar. Let's go do this. And I'm like, no, please, let's not. I just want to be home. So it's really been a beautiful journey for us in our relationship to figure out what works and how to make that work.
How, again, relating to marriage and life and all in general, it takes a while to figure some of that stuff out, right? You know, it doesn't, especially when, because your careers have changed over time, right? How your big career just sort of kicked in high gear in the last 6 years then, or
6
what?
to 10 years.
And so was that a major adjustment, Steve?
Yes and no. I mean, I travel too, and so I have the luxury of traveling when I know she's traveling, which kind of helps.
Did you travel together on those, her speaking
He comes
trips?
to the cool
I just
places.
go to the fun cities.
The fun thing, the fun ones, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Only.
Yeah, but it works out very well for us that I can travel when she's gone. So then when she's home, I try to be home.
And what's your primary business now? Are you still doing the security-related entrepreneurship?
So,
or what?
so going back to that, I can't remember where I left off, but so
Neither
the
can Alan.
tracking-
Don't feel bad. Neither can Alan. So.
Yeah. So Alzheimer's kicking in, right? So the tracking device that we helped develop, and then now I'm with dealing with companies on a consulting basis. We've done stuff with Homeland Security, Raytheon.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And some of my clients, their clients that were on ankle bracelets, Martha Stewart, O.J. Simpson. So it's been a fun journey.
Have you been? Is there any current involvement with Homeland Security with this coronavirus
No,
stuff?
no,
So you're not in that.
no.
You're not related to it at this point
No,
yet.
no.
Is there a potential where your stuff kicks in with the coronavirus atmosphere at this point, or
No.
not? Okay.
No.
So it's okay.
No, but basically, right now I'm in collaboration with a guy in Kansas City, and we're developing a watch right now for Alzheimer's, dementia, criminal justice, and it's a one-of-a-kind watch, tracking watch. And this is going to help, going back to the beginning of the segment with the child trafficking, to put these on child in resort atmospheres, even their neighborhood, cruise ships, whatever.
Disney World.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And so the coronavirus has affected this.
All that stuff.
Yeah, because it's coming out of China, our molding and our production.
The word has come up in the studio a lot. Collaborate. Collaborate seems to be a big word in this group in the studio today. Everybody's into collaboration. So
Yeah.
So Tiffany, again, from your viewpoint, you are millennial, I assume, on the cusp
Yes,
of. Okay.
I am.
So from a millennial point of view, how do you? Is this a? We're all a little bit older that are in the studio, somewhat. So what's the view of?
Speak for yourself, Bob.
Yeah, what's the view of what we're going through right now from your standpoint or your generation standpoint?
Time for us to realize how serious it was and to actually stay put. So I think it's really good that all the big cities have mandated, all non-essentials are closed and shut down, because I knew a lot of people who were still going out and doing things, and they kind of had to be forced not to. I mean, which just happened yesterday here in Phoenix. So one of my good friends was going to a movie, and she was like, "This is so great. We have it all to ourselves." I'm like, "That's really not smart." So then just after that, they put that closure on everything. But also, a lot of people I know are in the service industry and in the event industry, which I worked in for a long time. And they're all having to file for unemployment. A lot of them are had to fly or drive home just to be with their parents. or, all different kinds of things, but it is really affecting them. But
Do you think there's long-term effects to going through this at your age, just in terms of what it does for your view of the larger world at this point? Or if it resolves fast, it's no big deal. If it doesn't resolve in the next month or two, how do you think this is affecting? I think because I speak of 2008, 2009 affected a lot of people when it came to investing.
Right.
It scared them out of the markets, and they've never gotten back in. So is there something similar with your generation going through this right now, do you think?
as far as the market.
No, not so much market, just life in general. Life in general.
I mean, as of right now, it's just getting more serious. So people my age are just starting to realize how serious it is, where as of even just yesterday, they weren't. I think the biggest effect is just financially.
Just losing the income and things like that?
Yeah, because I mean, we're all really connected virtually, and we have so many resources. Like a lot of people, like big podcasts I follow, and just social media influencers, like they're doing Instagram lives and Facebook lives, and they're doing, meditations and like group dance parties and like all kinds of great stuff. So I feel almost even more connected than I did before, because everyone's there and we have time. We have time to, delve into ourselves and to each other and our relationships and like cooking and gardening, and I think it's a good thing for a short period of time.
For a short period of time, right.
Tiffany, I love that you just said all that, because coming from your perspective, I think depending on where we are and what generation, we have a different perspective on and how we handle even fear and change and everything. So it's really refreshing. And I just have to ask, because we have 3 grown boys, that nobody lives here. They're all in other cities. So your sisters, you mentioned, are they local or are they in other cities?
Yeah, they're still in high school, so they live with Dad.
Oh, you're so blessed. You're so fortunate.
It's just keeping them contained is tough.
I bet you it is. We don't have to deal with that, but we're dealing with one in Chicago, and it's crisis over there, and then one in LA and one in Kansas City. So we wonder, right?
Yeah, and it's just that we don't know where this is going to go at this point. I mean, we'll listen to this podcast recording a couple weeks from now, and we'll be, what the heck were we thinking? I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah.
And so, I think it will have a dramatic effect on how America lives after this. I think 9/11 had its effect with the airline industry, but it was short-lived. I mean, we all got back on planes. It took a while, but we did it. It's a little different with a disease, I think. You sit and you kind of, everyone you sit next to, you kind of look at it. Are you cool? So I'm telling you, you need to develop this little thing that lights up on your watch. Like, shoot, I've got the coronavirus. And everyone else can see it.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, okay,
that'll make my engineer very happy.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is, I think people after this, I think this will have a lot longer psychological, social, and an economic effect on people.
On that note, unfortunately, this gathering of this group will have to come to an end, but we're going to try to get this group together again to do part 2 of this, because there's so much more to cover. Great show, great group of people, a lot of ground we covered this show. We'll get part 2 going soon, so stay with us in the listening audience. We are the older version of Young Reporters. I'm Bob Fishman, along with Holly Dowling and Alan Ripa. Today we've had special guests Steve Dowling, Mark Candelaria, and Tiffany Candelaria, and we're going to try to keep this group together and do this one more time. Oh, we've also had Amber Lapastora and Charlie Lapastora, sort of happily in the background, sitting under the old KFNX sign, sipping their water, and we might get them involved in the next thing. Thank you, LJ, back there in the studio. And LJ's got a smile, because I think we must have done some good discipline in the studio. I think we followed our orders. We'll be back with you guys again. Stay with us for one more show. Bye.
So there's a beautiful couple in the studio who many of you have already heard from on a couple different occasions. They're just glowing. Aren't they precious?
Totally.
They're just the most beautiful couple, Amber and Charlie. And so when I first got to know Amber, and very blessed to have her sharing her brilliant gifts with me and our mission. And along with that, though, I have to say it's the best story I've ever heard. And I just want you guys to say it on the air, because when I learned, so I grew up watching all these game shows like many of us. And if you remember, The Price is Right. You
Bob
remember
Barker.
that,
Yep,
don't you?
absolutely,
Don't you, Mark?
absolutely.
You
Of
remember
course.
that?
Yep.
And it's still going.
Bob Barker is right. Yep.
Yeah, and remember Bob Barker.
Yep.
And the craziest part of the story is I get to know Amber. Come to find out, well, she's going to tell you here, her and Charlie, not only were they on The Price is Right, they won the showcase
Oh
showdown.
my goodness.
They
Oh,
are
my
real
goodness.
winners. Look at Mark. He's looking at you like, really? And then
I want to know when I'm designing their house.
oh, it's a great story. And then before they have to tell it.
So-
I want them to know. They have to know this because this brings Steve into the picture. So a
Okay.
week after I find this out about Amber and Charlie, we're visiting some of Steve's friends he grew up with, and the new voice of The Price is Right is Steve's friend he's grown up with, which is Greg,
Oh my
Wow.
George Gregg. Isn't that funny?
God. So tell
And he
briefly.
botched your name.
Briefly, Charlie and Amber, what was it like?
George, if you're listening, you did botch their name.
Charlie and Amber, what was it like? What was it like as you're winning, but having to go risk everything for the big showcase? What was the moment like when it actually happened? What was that like?
The moment when so you're talking about the moment when I'm going against the other person.
Whatever the moment was, as you see the moment, okay, the big moment, whether it's fear or joy, whatever it was. What was the big moment on that experience?
Ooh, I would have to say everything moves so fast. Once you're on that stage, everything's unbelievable. Everything's overwhelming. People are shouting from the crowd. So I had to zero in on my then fiance, now we're married, and my mom, and just focus, tunnel
They were
vision
part
on
of your
them.
group up on the stage, right? Or were they out in the audience? Where were they?
They were out in the audience.
So you were the
Oh.
only one on the stage.
Yes.
Oh.
But he was a huge help.
So Charlie, how were you a huge help? What was your huge help?
Sign signals out there.
Yeah, what was your huge help?
What's crazy about this is our journey has been just a faith-filled journey. Like our faith in Christ is huge, and we dated long distance for a while. We were engaged long distance. I'm from Michigan, she's from LA, and so I moved to LA just for a few months, and we were like, okay, let's. You had show tickets, and we were looking for different shows, and you had extra tickets for The Price is Right.
Yeah.
And then so we took your mom.
Yeah. And at the same time, we're trying to plan a wedding that we
Right.
can't afford.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. And so we go, just like, let's have fun at the show, and see what happens. And so we go in, we were running late actually, and so we get there, and then they line us all up, and they're asking us questions.
Well, first we get the little name tag,
Yeah, the name
which
tag.
is exciting.
Yeah, and then they're asking, like, if you want a car, what would you do with it? And I'm like, well, I'm from the Motor City, man. I would drive that thing back to Michigan,
And then we'll drive it right back to the Sunshine State.
Right. And then so we get in, and then all three of us, they reserve 3 seats in like the front row, like in the stage audience, just for us three. And so
Did you know you were gonna be on at that point?
we didn't know.
Okay, as a
we just were
contestant?
like
Okay,
right behind
okay.
where the 4 contestants are.
Yeah.
So you're just thinking you got good seats.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, this is we scored.
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
And then so it was funny because we were actually talking with your mom, like huddling up before, and I'm like, I have no idea.
So as you're watching her on the stage, and she's winning, apparently she's winning. And
Yeah, well,
so what are you
Well, but
thinking?
he was giving me the numbers and the signals.
Oh.
What was
Because I couldn't think on stage.
Yeah.
I just blank out. You're like, what is happening? What's going on? Okay, you say this. Mom says this. All right, we're good.
Probably a lot of little green apples.
So what culminated? What was the big moment then? What was
the big moment was definitely so beforehand. We were talking with your mom. I don't know any prices. Like
He
I
was
could go-
clueless. Yeah.
straight up. I mean, and so it was only like looking back. I mean, it was just a powerful thing because I was super confident. Like I've got gloves now, but I was putting up the numbers like. It was the car game. It was for the car.
Yeah.
And there was a voice in my head that was like, "Get your fiance. You've never owned a car before. You've always shared with your mom." And there was a voice in my head that said, "Get your fiance that car." I would like put up numbers. And
He looked so sure.
I was so confident. And that was all thanks to God because he put those numbers in my head to get and then got
we
a car.
should have.
Yeah.
You know who related to this? When you guys were on the kids show, if we had you guys, if we somehow or other gotten the right question, you had told the story, the kids would have feasted on, because you guys are like, you're reverting to like 13 years old right now. It's so funny to watch you describe this story. It is so funny. Tell us briefly, we got about 2 minutes in this segment. What was it like for you guys as guests on the Young Reporter show? Because you're the only ones in the studio other than Alan who've seen the kids in action. So tell us about that.
You want to go first?
You get about a minute and a half.
I think it was great that you guys have this segment to really mold the youth in broadcasting. I know for me, I felt really a strong calling to be in the media because there is so much negativity, there is so much drama, there is so much just opinion back and forth. And why can't we get to the table like we are right now from all different backgrounds and to actually talk and come up with solutions, viable solutions? And I think if you start at a young age and have these kids come with that mindset, I think that it was great to see that.
And Amber, how about you? Because I got a real quick comment after. What was your experience with that with the kids?
I remember being one of those kids, dreaming about working in the media and getting my college degree in broadcast journalism or in being on radio, because we both did radio in college as one of our courses, and it was just so exciting to speak with them, and they were just so enthusiastic.
And one thing special that happened
happy.
that day, both you guys connected to individual kids, and when I went back to the classroom the next week, those kids were so lit up and on fire, and they had your cards, and they were so happy. One of them was a design. She was interested in design, and she was connected with you, Amber, and the other one was Charlie connected with you. It was one of the boys, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that lasts with them forever. They will always remember that. And so I'm so pleased that you guys gave us your time to come down there. And we have to go to commercial break right now, but thank you for doing that for us.
Yeah.
We loved your story on The Price is Right. We are the Young Reporters, the old version. We have to go to commercial break right now. We'll be back with our regular guests in the studio, the Mark Candelaria, Tiffany Candelaria, and Steve Dowling. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Stay with us.